Hello and welcome. I'm Jenny Hall. Thanks for joining me today to have a look at the Arteza Watercolor Pencils. My friends at Arteza have sent me some more products, and this is my first try with the watercolor pencils. There is such a nice variety of color in this set of pencils. There are 3 trays, and they come in a full spectrum rainbow of colors. One of the first things that I do whenever I work with colored pencils of any kind is to sharpen them. And these pencils sharpen up really nicely with an electric pencil sharpener. I use one that is electric and it is capable of working with colored pencils. So you can see what the difference is between the sharpened one that's blue and the way it comes in the package. I'm going to practice today on Strathmore watercolor paper and use a couple of pencils to see exactly how they work together. We're going to create a few projects after this little play first, so hang in and get to see the full product demonstration. I'm using a yellow and a purple together to see how they blend on the paper. And I can see that they blend together better whenever they're melted than whenever they are just sitting on top of the paper. But they blend together very, very nicely when wet. Some pencil sets that I've used look better whenever they are just colored as a regular colored pencil, and some are just magic when it comes to watercoloring, when you actually activate that part of the pencil that liquefies. And I feel that this is the latter, that these pencils really show off what they can do when you wet them and use them in an actual watercolor way. And they're very easy to use. So you can see that removing them from the little trays that they're in is as simple as just pushing down on the end and it pops up. There are many colors here, and what I really like is the thought that Arteza has put into the set to make colors that already blend together, whether they're wet or not. And you can see when they're wet that they work together perfectly. So let's make a project and see how we can get them to work out as traditional type of watercolors. I'm using an image from Penny Black and the Arteza watercolor markers, and I have used the same watercolor paper that's from Strathmore and used some Hero Arts Platinum Embossing powder. And I've already put my colors in rainbow order. That helps me to be able to identify what I'm looking for a little more quickly than just hunting around. So I'm going to use these colors for this project. I picked out the colors before I started. Sometimes I pick them up as I go, but I chose the colors to show how they work together. And what I'm doing is just scratching down some color in between these embossing lines, not a lot of color, just enough, and look at how they're melting together. I'm using 2 different greens. One is this nice yellow green and the other is much darker green. And by placing the 2 of them together with the lighter color towards the tip of the leaf and the darker towards the base of the leaf, then they just work so well. I was honestly just blown away by the quality of these watercolor pencils. I never know what to expect when I use a new product, and so I try to go in with an open mind, and still with being that way, I again get a little pessimistic, thinking, well, they might not work so well, but I'm really, really impressed with these watercolor pencils. So I've used here a few peachy colors together with a plum or a fuchsia color, and I have put a lighter color toward the tip of the flowers and then put the medium tone right next to it, and then went for a much darker fuchsia color down toward the base of the petals. And then just wetting with that water brush is all it takes to melt the paint colors together and give that nice perfect blend. So I'm using the same colors on both of the flowers, and they are both going to kind of echo the same look. One will be much more open than the other flower. And because I have embossed this image, then all of the fluid is going to stay inside those embossing lines. It acts as a barrier to keep all of the fluid together. Here's another way that we can test out and see how these colors are going to work, and that's by scratching them onto a piece of scrap paper and then picking it up with the water brush. And this gives a much more, I guess, diluted look, and you could than you would if you had applied the pencil directly down. But this is also a really fun way to have the watercoloring look very translucent. And then now I'm going back and I'm hitting a few of the areas that need to get a little bit more color, and the pencil just goes right in there. It's just that easy. Now I'm going to create a shadow line on the outside of some of the images, and I'm still using the same set of pencils, and it's working out so well. You can see that I'm just melting that shadow line and kind of fading it out as I pull the paintbrush away, and it's effortless. It's effortless. I'm really, really impressed with these pencils. I know I'm saying that a lot, but I really am very impressed with the pencils. And they have a really nice price point as well. If you check the video description, I have a coupon code that Arteza has been generously given me to share with my viewers. So if you'd like to get these pencils at a discount, then check the video description and you can get the coupon code. So now I'm using a vanilla colored pencil just to give some distinction between the paper and the background of, what's supposed to be the background. And because I used blue on the birds, I did not want to use a blue background, so I've used a vanilla color. And now, just to create some interest on an otherwise really nice but kind of plain card, then I'm just going to cut away a portion of the watercolor panel just to kind of give it a little distinction and let that flower really stand out. So here's my third way to test out pencils, and I usually go tip to tip with a brush, and it melted it up really well. That's a good way to add a few more highlights after an image is already colored and you perhaps see another way that you'd like to deepen the colors. Here is a totally different way to use the pencils another way that I really like to use them, and that is just for coloring. So I'm creating with a stamp set from Kindred Stamps called Arcade Friends with the same set of watercolor pencils from Arteza. And you can see here that I've stamped off some other images and have been practicing on them as well. And these pencils work very nicely just as a colored pencil. So if you're traveling and you have need of like one set, limited baggage space to take with you, then you can use this with watercoloring or just as a regular colored pencil. I'm coloring in the male image to kind of look like a favorite movie character that my son Nate really likes. And so I'm trying to use a couple of different ways to show exactly what I can do with the pencils. So this is a blender pen that I've picked up that is made just for colored pencils, and it works superb to melt the colors together. As you can see, I put down about 3 different colors into the hair, and it melted it off just wonderfully. Now to create the area of the face, I'm using some peach colors, a nice low yellow, and then I'll also use some very light browns and grays. And I don't feel that it lends a very grainy look. There's a smoothness to it by just using the pencils, but it's not going to be quite as smooth as if I had used a paintbrush to melt the colors. Then that's going to melt everything together. And one thing that I do like about using colored pencils is I'm able to make a clear distinction and add a lot of details. But in watercolor pencils, then that's kind of taken away and everything's flattened out a little bit, and the contours that I added to the guy's face here would have kind of gone away. So I'm using even more pencils and laying down a foundation color, and then going back in with the same color and giving more intense pressure and kind of working in and creating the look of dimension into the little checkered shirt that he's wearing. And then I'll take one of those grays, and there are quite a few grays in this pencil set, and I'm going to add some grays into the shadows to kind of give it a contoured look. My son's favorite color is pink, and I don't try to discourage that. He's drawn to pink, and I don't know why, but he really likes pink. So I'm using a lot of pink color tones to color in this little wrecking guy, and pinks and fuchsias are something that he's kind of drawn to. So I used just a few colors to cover his overalls, and then the same colors are being used on his arms and hands as were used on his face and his nose. And I'm just using some contours and leaving a little white space on the light part of the contour of his body, and that's helping to create a little look of dimension. So I'm going to fussy cut this image, and once I have fussy cut him, then I'll take a long tipped black marker. Any dye ink marker will work for this, and I'm running it along the cut edge. Because it was really thick paper, I want it to cover the sides of the paper. I'm using the Altenew ink today. This is Frosty Pink. It's one of their dye inks. And the little sentiment, or maybe it's an icon from the Arcade Friends stamp set that says "You're my hero." And it reminds me of kind of like a cookie. And so I thought I would just make this be a very, very light background and create a little bit of highlights and shadows. I don't want to take away from the time that I spent in coloring the little fellow, so I want to just give something that has just something subtle. And using a few colors, I was able to outline in gray and get them really kind of fading into the background. Now I'm using that same glue pen, that Nouveau Smooth Precision glue pen, and some Arteza Chunky Holographic Glitter in the Moonstone color, and that's going to add a little bit of variety to the inside. And here is my son's birthday card and I am happy that he's going to really enjoy this. Thank you for spending time with me today, and I want to remind you to go over to my blog for the free PDF tutorial. There will be a tutorial for each one of these cards, and all of the products are listed in the video description. I'll see you next time.